Americans can achieve anything when we work together as one national family. To go forward, we must seek cooperation, not confrontation. We must build upon our heritage, not tear it down. And we must cherish the principles of America's founding as we strive to deliver safe, beautiful, elegant justice and liberty for all.
Well, good evening, everyone. You're listening to Red Pill 78. My name is Zach, and this is another edition of Red Pill News. Hope everyone's having a lovely day. I had to take the day off yesterday, and I'll tell you why. I have literally been inundated with negative stories. I am so tired of covering the craziness that is going on in the country today. I feel like it's been done ad nauseum. And the entire reason we see this happening is because the election in November this year is going to be the most important one we've ever faced. Also, as a result of covering this stuff, I do believe this is why my channel was recently demonetized. We've got a couple of stories today talking about the demonetization of other major conservative news organizations, Zero Hedge and The Federalist. The reason they were demonetized is because NBC News collaborated with some far-left organizations to get them demonetized. They complained to Google, and promptly they were removed from being able to make money on producing their journalistic excellence. Also, we have an update from Attorney General Bill Barr on the possibility of rolling back Section 230, which is going to open the way for potential lawsuits against this platform and others. And we've also got a follow-up on that because Senator Josh Hawley also is proposing legislation which is going to make it far easier for people like myself to sue as a result of the censorship that is taking place to shut us all down. And finally, AG Barr has also spoken out about John Bolton's new book. He is threatening to make sure that it never sees the light of day. So please, everyone, do sit back, relax, grab your popcorn, and we'll be right back after a brief word from our sponsor. You know, a lot of folks have lost hope recently, and with the stock market returning minus 10% since the start of the year, for a lot of people it's looking dismal, but it doesn't have to be. Crazy as it sounds, gold has actually gained ground by around 15%. That's a 25% more bang for your buck. It's probably something you've never considered before. So, should you be investing in precious metals? Gold, silver, palladium, and platinum have proven to be safe haven investments. It's the only investment with appreciating value during an economic collapse. If you're interested in securing your wealth, call Noble Gold Investment today at 877-646-5347. That's 877-646-5347, or visit the website at noblegoldinvestments.com. Once again, that's noblegoldinvestments.com. And remember, when you support my sponsors, you support this channel. All right, thanks for sticking around. First of all, today, before we get into the stories, a couple of posts came out as I was recording. Now, post 4475, it is a meme showing the silent majority in 2016 versus 2020. Here we have an iceberg. Right down here, this is the silent majority. It is much smaller than what we see today. The silent majority is far larger. Many more people have woken up, and they understand just how important everything is in 2020. Now, we also have post 4476, and it is a redrop of post 940, which shows the flag of the 1933 paramilitary wing of the Communist Party in Germany versus the 2017 paramilitary wing of the Democratic Party of America. And you can see anti-fascist action, one's in German, one's in English, but the design is virtually exactly the same. 2 red flags versus 1 black and 1 red. Now, our favorite Anon says old playbooks still used today. Then versus now. Compare and contrast. And we have a link to an article from 2016, which was in The Guardian. Now we have a selected quote from that article, and it says the Associated Press news agency entered a formal cooperation with the Hitler regime in the 1930s, supplying American newspapers with material directly produced and selected by the Nazi propaganda ministry. Archive material unearthed by a German historian has revealed. To the extent it is fair to say that these pictures played their part in disguising the true character of the war led by the Germans. How did Hitler gain power? What events created population defiance, extremism, the insurrection? And next, there's an article from the BBC talking about Hitler, his rise in power. Global economic depression, reparations, huge rise in unemployment. Germans began to lose faith in democracy and looked to extreme parties on both the left, the communists, and the right, the Nazis, for quick and simple solutions. When people are unemployed, hungry, and desperate, as millions were in Germany between 1930 and 1933, they often turn to extreme political parties offering simple solutions to their problems. Between 1930 and 33, support for the extreme right-wing Nazis and the extreme left-wing communists soared. Now, take a look at today. MSDNC, peaceful protests. MSDNC, propaganda campaign. MSDNC, information warfare campaign. MSDNC, POTUS must be removed. Pushed years 1 through now. And then we have a Twitter status from Robbie Starbuck. Let's take a look. Now, Robbie says, these disturbing tweets are sadly not a tiny fringe view on the left anymore. He just said it out loud. Many don't want to coexist like their bumper stickers used to say. Many really believe we are less than human and think we belong in re-education camps. That's the vile truth. And they are some screenshots from the Palmer Report. Let's take a look. Now, these tweets from the Palmer Report are in relation to the head coach at Oklahoma State. He says people who promote the racist propaganda hate speech on OWN are dangerous thugs. They have no place in respectable society. Mike Gundy cannot remain the Oklahoma State head coach, too influential of a position in society. Fire him unless he agrees to get extensive psychological help. What was his crime? His crime was wearing a shirt from OANN, a conservative news network. He continues, it's time we acknowledge that conservatism isn't just some political view. It means you're the bottom rung of society, dangerous and deranged. Some conservatives are trying to become better people. Great. But people who flaunt their conservatism are psychotic. I think that this point of view is psychotic, because just because you're conservative does not mean that you are racist or that you harbor feelings of hatred towards another group. He continues, we shouldn't be cold-hearted about this, but having a conservative as a police officer, for instance, isn't much difference from having a K member as a police officer. It's just not something that a civilized society can ever tolerate. We should rehabilitate any conservatives who are willing to try. We should pay for them to undergo therapy and retraining so they can understand the world around them. But first, we must get them out of positions of influence because they're infringing on the rights of others. This point of view is sad, sick, and deranged, and it calls back to the re-education camps of the Soviet Gulag. Now, our favorite Anon continues, CV-19, global economic depression, D-Party, BLM race push reparations, CV-19, huge rise in unemployment, 40 million, insurrection, riots, city takeovers, remove police, weaken, property destroy, assaults, murder, release by Democratic governors and mayors back to the streets, safe zones, division, hostility, race war, etc. End goal then versus now. Government control. Understanding the past helps to understand the present. Now, obviously, the point of this post is to juxtapose the situation taking place back then to the situation taking place now. It is the exact same playbook. By pushing economic depression, by pushing compartmentalization of people based upon race or national origin, they are hoping to achieve the same situation which produced the Nazi Party and the Communist Party back in Germany in the 1930s, with the end goal being the total control of our government and our people by the Democratic Party. All right, guys, thanks for sticking around. First of all, today we're going to be talking about the issue of conservative news outlets being censored by these tech giants. Now, for years, this platform, Google, has been censoring the Gateway Pundit. They've been deplatformed, deranked. Their stories will not come up in search results. They will not allow people to link to them. And their website long ago lost the ability to serve up ads so that they can make money. Now, the same thing has happened to The Federalist and to Zero Hedge. Hedge. Now, I use Gateway Pundit quite a bit here, and I would say that over the years, their reporting has been far more accurate than any of the liberal media outlets that are allowed to make money through platforms such as this. Liberal news outlets don't get deplatformed. They don't have their stories hidden. They don't get their stories fact-checked, even though I think all of us know that the vast majority of times they are outright lies, if not half-truths at best. Now, some things that the Gateway Pundit has covered accurately. We can look at the Covington Catholic School story. We can look at the Jussie Smollett story. We can look at the Trump-Russia collusion hoax story. All of these things reported accurately by the Gateway Pundit and reported inaccurately by the liberal mainstream media. They have been 100% correct about this, and I would say in the vast majority of instances, conservative news outlets as a whole have been accurate in their reporting as well. Now, back in 2017, there was a study that was conducted by the Harvard Berkman Klein Center and the Columbia Journalism of Review, and they found that the Gateway Pundit was the fourth most influential conservative publisher of the 2016 election. Well, since that time, they have been censored or eliminated by the tech giants who run far-left social media platforms and more. Back in September of 2018, Jim Hoft was actually called in to testify in Congress about the actions that Facebook was taking to censor or eliminate conservative voices. But it's not just Facebook. Twitter is a big problem. Google is a big problem. Google won't even serve up Gateway Pundit links. They make you wade through a whole bunch of muck before you can even find them. And the idea is they don't want people getting to the Gateway Pundit. They don't want the truth in these stories to be found by you at home. Now, Gateway Pundit has been banned, they've been blocked, they've been censored, and there are many other voices just like them, such as myself, who have witnessed and gone through the exact same thing. Well, just yesterday, Google banned Zero Hedge and The Federalist from being able to serve up Google ads on their websites. That means that their websites can no longer be monetized in the traditional sense. What is awful about this is that Google owns the advertising market on the internet. They essentially have a monopoly. I believe that there are smaller advertising companies that allow you to post ads, but nothing comes close to the reach and quality of ads that you're able to put on your website from a place like Google Ads. Now, they are just the latest casualty in this war. Google later came back yesterday and said that the Federalist isn't actually banned, they're just on top secret probation. Apparently, they went through their stories, they saw stories about the recent havoc taking place in the country, and they decided they didn't like the way the Federalist was reporting on the riots and the looting. And that is exactly what happened to me. I did 2 videos talking about the unrest in the country, and they saw those videos, and then promptly I was demonetized on their platform, no longer able to make revenue from putting videos on this platform. Now, it's not all about the revenue, but the revenue allows me to continue to do this and produce the quality content that I have been producing for the last 2 years. Now, the Federalist and Zero Hedge, they have staff. They have many people they have to pay. So they're going to be put at a significant disadvantage for the amount of information they're going to be able to put out, the types of stories they're going to be able to research and to write. The government must do something to stop this. The reason this is happening is because these tech giants do not like the point of view that conservative news outlets produce, the truth that is produced, the information that is put forward, the dissenting point of view to the liberal mainstream media point of view. Now, what's really crazy about this story is that Zero Hedge and the Federalist were not just simply demonetized because Google did a review. I was told that a review was done on my channel, and they determined that I produced harmful and abusive content. I think it's far more likely that someone who doesn't like my content or my point of view reported those videos as being somehow harmful or abusive, which promptly led to my demonetization, because that is exactly what happened to Zero Hedge and the Federalist. Let's see who it was that got them kicked off. Well, wouldn't you know it, it looks like it was the left-wing mainstream media who colluded with the tech giants to actually get the conservative competition cut out. We are their competition for business, for minds, for hearts, and for information. And if they can silence our dissenting point of view, then it's far more likely they're going to be able to reach people and brainwash them as a result. Now, last Thursday, CNN political reporter Oliver Darcy, who has defended the Seattle Autonomous Zone, published a a hit piece where he centered on conservative publishers and their voices. Now, his primary purpose at the networks is to silence conservative voices, and he published this hit piece which contained information on the Gateway Pundit, Breitbart, and others. Darcy said specifically, right-wing websites like Breitbart and the Gateway Pundit have also pushed the narrative that armed Antifa members have begun seizing land. Antifa is reportedly seeking armed volunteers to take turns manning barricades and holding ground that protesters have seized within Seattle city limits, a Breitbart article said. Now, that report relied on a post from the far-right blog The Gateway Pundit, a website known for peddling misinformation and conspiracy theories. There contains a massive lie. The Gateway Pundit is not known for peddling misinformation and conspiracy theories. If anything, they are known for far more accurate reporting than either CNN or NBC combined. And when it comes to the seizing of American land, all one needs do is take a look at the videos coming out of the Chaz or the Chop or whatever they're known as this week, and you can see that they actually have done that. There are barricades set up. They have taken over a police station. They have gone around and extorted money from businesses. People who live in this autonomous zone feel that their lives are in danger. Crime is up. They clearly have taken over land. They refuse to cede it back, and they have become the colonizers themselves. Here is a sign that was recently put up inside this autonomous zone. It is identifying it as now property of this super far left-wing group. Now, in the report, Darcy says that local officials said there was no interaction with armed individuals at the encampment there in the Chaz. However, we've all seen pictures and videos of weapons being handed out and people with those weapons guarding the barricades and stopping people from coming in, checking their IDs, and more. Now, at this point, everyone is very aware of Raz Simone. He is the local warlord of the autonomous zone, and this is a picture of him carrying an automatic weapon, and he is walking around intimidating people. There's also been footage of him punching and abusing people inside the autonomous zone. Now, this week, NBC contacted Google and complained about the manner in which Zero Hedge and the Federalist were reporting on this autonomous zone. Google then promptly banned them from using their ad network. NBC cheered. Here is a tweet from Adele Momoko Frazier. It says, new from NBC VC, thanks to SF Fake News and CCD Hate for their hard work and collaboration. These are two far left-wing organizations. Tim Pool reported on it, as he often does. He said NBC contacted Google and complained about Zero Hedge on the Federalist, and they promptly were banned. Here is another tweet from Mike Cernovich, who I don't necessarily follow, but it includes a larger version of that tweet from Adele Momoko Frazier. This is the NBC reporter who says that she collaborated with SF Fake News and CCD Hate and collaborated to have these two conservative news outlets banned from using the Google ad platform. Now, later today, law professor Glenn Reynolds weighed in on this latest censorship, and he called out the ban on conservative websites and suggested that NBC can be investigated on conspiracy charges, and I believe they should be. Now, as I said, there are other ad markets that can be served up on these websites. However, they are just a fraction of the portion of the market that Google controls. It is time for an antitrust investigation to really take a close look at the way they do their business. Now, luckily, something like that is already being done, but it is not happening fast enough because the longer it takes, the more conservative voices and websites there are that get banned, that get demonetized, that get kicked off of platforms. Now, Mark Levin, which we all know and love, he agrees that this is a major problem. He says an antitrust investigation into the potential collusion of Comcast NBC is absolutely warranted, and this drew the attention of Fox News. It was initially NBC who covered the story about the Federalist and Zero Hedge getting banned, and they claimed these websites were pushing unsubstantiated claims about the BLM movement. Google later pushed back and just said that Federalist was not fully demonetized, but they were working with them to address the issues on their site related to the comment section. Now, this is something that I've brought up here on my channel before. I've asked people to keep the comment section clean, but of course, when you're running a public forum, you can't control what the people in your comment section say. Now, there is always going to be something that's offensive to someone, but what is very important here is that Google takes that into account when they decide to demonetize someone, and that is extremely, extremely unfair. They said we have strict publisher policies that govern the content ads can run on and explicitly prohibit derogatory content that promotes hatred, intolerance, violence, or discrimination based on race from monetizing. However, they never bothered to produce this supposedly derogatory content from the Federalist or Zero Hedge. So the point is that this is all a ruse. It is an excuse to make sure that they can continue to censor conservative voices and stop these stories from being reported on accurately. Right now, there is a war on free speech in this country, and it is clearly divided between the left and the right. The left want to control the narrative, and the more conservative news outlets that they can demonetize or deplatform, the closer they come to winning this war. All right, now recently, President Trump produced that executive order seeking to give the social media companies and these tech giants an opportunity to fall in line with Section 230. Well, now Attorney General Bill Barr and his DOJ are proposing to roll back big tech Section 230 protections, which is going to open the door to lawsuits from people like myself and people like Zero Hedge, The Gateway Pundit, Breitbart, and others. Now, last week, Bill Barr did an interview with Bret Baier on Special Report, and he said he clearly believes the social media giants are engaged in censorship and are acting like publishers. The big deal with Section 230 is it allows them protections as long as they are acting as platforms and not as publishers. They're acting as publishers because they are deciding what content is allowed to remain on their platform and who can be monetized for producing what information. So Bill Barr was asked by Bret Baier, so you think these social media firms are somehow censoring the president and his supporters? Barr replied, I think they are. Clearly, these entities are now engaged in censorship, and they originally held themselves out as open forums where the third parties could come and express their views that they've built up a tremendous network of eyeballs through. They had a lot of market power based on that presentation, and now they are acting much more like publishers because they're censoring particular viewpoints and putting their own content in there to diminish the impact of various people's views. Think about videos like mine, videos like other people who cover this movement. They'll have the Wikipedia entries for dissenting opinions produced below them. Twitter is fact-checking the president, offering up articles by CNN to dissent against what the president is trying to say. And by doing so, they hope to change the narrative and control it, to take people like you and me and turn us to their point of view, or to shame us in such a manner so that we do not want to put out our own opinions or produce information that is counter to their own narrative. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at what Senator Josh Hawley is doing, because he has been one of the only voices in Washington who has consistently stood up for people like us. All right, now I've mentioned lawsuits several times in the course of this video. There are lawsuits that are actively being produced as I speak, and this big move from Senator Josh Hawley makes all the difference. He has introduced legislation to allow users like us the right to sue big tech over their online censorship. Back in 2017, the far-left Soros-connected Media Matters sent out a document entitled Democracy Matters, Strategic Plan for Action. It was about their 2017 to 2020 plan to defeat President Trump and the Republicans. Now, this plan included working with the tech giants, Facebook, Twitter, and Google, to censor and silence conservative voices and platforms. Now, Democrats and their big allies in the big tech world know that conservatives were able to freely communicate prior to the 2016 election and get around the lies of the mainstream media. So they put together a plan to silence people like us. Now, today, conservative voices are routinely blocked, banned, censored, all by the far-left entities and elites at Facebook, Twitter, Google, YouTube, and others. Now, in late May, with President Trump finally signing that executive order on the social media censorship, the social media giants and tech giants in Silicon Valley have gotten a warning, and I sure hope that it's starting to make them think differently about it. But as of today, nothing has changed. And on Tuesday, with the announcement of the demonetization of the Federalist and Zero Hedge, it sure doesn't seem like it's done anything to change their minds. Now, what has changed is that finally this morning, Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri has announced he was introducing new legislation to combat this big tech censorship. Hawley's new legislation will give users the right to sue if they are discriminated against by these platforms. Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio joined Senator Hawley on the legislation, which is a good sign. However, I have my doubts about Rubio. Now, here we have the tweet directly from Josh Hawley with the story from Axios. So let's check it out. All right, so as stated, this was just released this morning. The idea is that consumers are now going to have grounds to sue tech companies like Facebook, Twitter, Google, YouTube, if they feel they are selectively censored for having conservative political speech. Now, the details are it is entitled the Limiting Section 230 Immunity to Good Samaritans Act, and the idea is it's going to prevent major online companies from receiving the protections provided by Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act unless they revise their terms of service to include pledges to operate in good faith and details of their content moderation policies. Section 230 currently protects website owners from lawsuits over user-generated content and empowers them to moderate content without losing that legal protection. Now, under Hawley's bill, users like us who believe the provider is not operating in good faith by consistently and fairly applying its content rules could sue for up to $5,000 in attorney's fees. The bill is also sponsored by Republican Senators Marco Rubio and Mike Braun and Tom Cotton, but the legislation would only apply to websites or mobile apps with more than 30 million users in the U.S. in a month, or 300 million worldwide in a month, and more than $1.5 billion in global revenue. Now, the only problem I see is that $5,000 is a paltry sum. $5,000 is something that these companies could fork out to probably every single individual who uses their platform with a conservative voice, and it would most likely be a drop in the bucket, especially when they're being funded by major international organizations such as George Soros or the Saudis or whoever it is that is controlling these platforms. I think this bill by Josh Hawley is a step in the right direction, but I do not think it goes far enough. There are far greater damages than $5,000 per user that can be attributed to the censorship of these people. In fact, I think it's very, very difficult to establish any type of monetary value for the censorship of voices like yours and mine. These people need to either adhere to Section 230 or they need to lose it, and there should be no limit on the amount of money that they can be sued for the damages incurred. All right, guys, and finally, John Bolton is back in the news, and AG Barr is threatening to block his new book. He says that the former Trump advisor could face charges if it's released. Now, President Trump on Monday actually spoke about this as well. He said that Bolton could face a criminal problem if he tries to release the new book without a proper clearance. It's entitled The Room Where It Happened, a White House memoir. Now, remember, the New York Times obtained a manuscript in January during the entire Ukraine impeachment hoax, which accused President Trump of tying Ukraine aid to the Biden investigation. And of course, the timing was very suspicious when it all took place. Now, Bolton's book was originally scheduled to be released in March. However, it was twice delayed and may be delayed yet again because it hasn't gone through the proper security clearance. John Bolton must allow this book to be reviewed by the U.S. government to ensure that he doesn't release sensitive information. Now, President Trump has stated that Bolton has not completed the pre-publication review, which will make sure that the book doesn't contain classified material, but Chuck Cooper, Bolton's attorney, has said that the client worked painstakingly for months with classification specialists at the White House National Security Council to make changes to avoid releasing classified material. Now, it doesn't surprise me that he said that because the National Security Council has been the primary group behind the move to try to impeach President Trump, and it's the same group that had a bunch of people come in and testify stating that President Trump used the Ukraine aid to try to tie it to the Biden investigation, which we know to be patently false. Attorney General Barr has echoed President Trump's accusation. During a recent event at the White House, he said that administration officials who have access to sensitive information typically sign non-disclosure agreements that require them to go through a clearance process before they can publish something based on information they accessed while in a job in the government. And he said, we don't believe that Bolton went through that process. He hasn't completed the process and therefore is in violation of that agreement. Now, he also said the the administration is trying to get them to complete the process and make the necessary deletions of classified information. Now, the U.S. yesterday filed a breach of contract lawsuit against John Bolton, alleging the book actually does contain classified information. Of course, this comes after President Trump fired John Bolton back in September of 2019 as National Security Advisor. At the time, President Trump said, "I informed John Bolton last night that his services are no longer needed at the White House. I disagreed strongly with many of his suggestions, as did others in the administration, and therefore I asked John for his resignation, which was given to me this morning. I thank John very much for his service. I will be naming a new National Security Advisor next week." That was from some tweets back in September. And John Bolton worked as security advisor under President Trump after General H.R. McMaster was forced out of the position in March of 2018. Now, both H.R. McMaster and John Bolton were swamp creatures. President Trump had them in there, in my opinion, to give the swamp the feeling of security that it needed, to think that President Trump was being controlled. However, we can see from everything he's done in the past, he takes these people in, he allows them to be part of the administration, but then he doesn't really follow any of their recommendations. I think John Bolton is playing with fire here. What he's trying to do is get this book out to release classified information, to try to make President Trump look bad, and if he goes through with it, I think he's going to end up in prison. Quite literally, my friends, we are in a fight for our very existence, for our very lives. And I know that watching the slow creep of the Democratic Party as they attempt to take over the country is very unsettling to many of you. However, I ask you to please consider the fact that although we are doing this slowly, it is happening. We are on the right side of history, and we will prevail in the end. I know it's hard to sit back and watch as these things happen. I know it's unsettling to watch as your friends are deplatformed, as the channels you like are destroyed and taken offline. But I myself promise you, I will not stop fighting until we attain the ultimate goal, and that is the recovery and recapture of our country in whole. It's not enough for us to take a few steps at a time. We must gain ground and never cede it back. This country was founded on free speech. This country was founded on equality. This country was founded on liberty. And we must never allow these people to take these tenets of our republic away from us. We must fight till the very last man. And I assure you that in November, that battle is going to come to a head. As always, this has been Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this was your Red Pill News. Good luck, everyone, and God bless. Hey guys, one more thing. I just want to say thank you to everybody who has supported the channel. If you're interested in doing more, there is always links in the description below. I have the merch store. Of course, I also have the backup channels. Please subscribe to those. If you take a look up here, you're going to see a couple of other videos. There's also a spot to subscribe if you have not subscribed yet. And if you are subscribed, I ask you to please check and make sure that you're still subscribed and your notifications are turned on. Thank you, everybody, for watching the program, and I will see you tomorrow.